This is all wonderful. And, this is a great way to start a show. Just, shouting and screaming at the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alan Park in Canada, having a slight internet.
Get out of the way, Sonny. Come on, man. Help me out here.
To do episode 2 of our chit chat. When this happens on the BBC, when the rain happens at Wimbledon, they normally just talk shit on the microphone in a soft voice.
How about now?
Oh, he's here and he's back.
Oh my God. What is going on?
Have you had to walk over the other side of the building to get to an internet connection that works?
Yeah, and upstairs, but now I don't see you.
Oh, well, that's a blessing.
No, it isn't. I want to see you. Look, I was so set up, it was perfect. I had it all going on. I got a little set happening for last.
I noticed you look all relaxed in the chair. I was jealous. You've got things going on. You've got cushion, blanket.
I got nothing. Oh, there you are. Okay.
I quite like this set. It's sort of apocalyptic. Is this your old apartment?
This is my old apartment, so it's going to be very echoey.
Yeah,
and,
like it.
Kind of dark, isn't it? It's a dark day. Let me see. Yeah, what a crazy. I didn't want to spend 10 minutes setting up. That's ridiculous. Spent an hour setting up yesterday. Okay, is that going to get some daylight on me or what's?
Yeah, that's good. It's all good. It's all good.
Okay. This is the room that...
this is like the room Neo was in where he gets...
very much live in that kind of situation, yeah. All right, this is good.
How are you going to make a phone call when you can't speak, Mr. Anderson?
So listen, I'm all up to date. I want to get a couple things out of the way first. My goodness, the flow of people that you have helping me. All right, so people that listened to the last show that we did, and which was just a wonderful time. I'm still buzzing from that one, so I don't know if this one's
great to hear.
And just so many people had so many nice things to say and offer, and I haven't been able to get back to them all and even try all of the things that they recommended. Some of the things, but let me just give you a blanket overall impression of what happened last time. So there was healing energy, right? That's the intention from, I guess, regular viewers and then people that have something to offer in the way of healing. And for a few weeks before your show, I felt like I was kind of on an upswing, and then was on your show. And then after that, it just feels like you can almost feel being held by many. You know how hard it is to pick somebody up by yourself with just 2 fingers, but if 20 people are doing it, it feels like it's nothing, right? And my essence, I guess, I don't know, felt like, I feel like that. I feel like people have a conscious energy to want to help, whether I've been able to employ all of the protocols or not, and I have been able to do some of them. And I'm just so grateful to everybody that was listening and enjoyed it. And it's just been a great experience, except for the last 10 minutes. Pink Floyd.
Oh, Pink Floyd. That's the Pink Floyd.
That's my mug. Yeah.
I love that album. Starting this YouTube channel was not, I never planned to do it. It was not like, I want to be on YouTube particularly. It was, I had to do it, right? It was like, a calling. I didn't even realize what that meant, but it's changed my life. And in the last couple of months, the thing that makes it so extraordinary is the people that watch these shows. And I wouldn't have found you. I'd have probably kicked the bucket, never seen you again. And it's just incredible how all these things are happening and making friends. I've lost loads of friends since all this pandemic shit happened, but I've gained.
Tell me about one of those. Tell me just one of those stories.
Okay.
Tell me about one of your friends that you lost.
Well, there's a guy that I was really good friends for 30 years with, and well, this is not that exciting a story. It was just like the other night, I was like, I wonder how he's doing. So I went on Facebook and found his profile, and then realized it said add friend, and I was like, oh.
That's the best one. Yeah. Add friend.
I don't think he'll appreciate me saying, can we be friends? But there's basically, when I met you, first, anybody watching this who's not seen us before, go back and watch episode 1 so we don't repeat stuff. But Alan and I met 21 years ago in Manchester, and we're working on the comedy circuit. And Alan was a proper comedian. I was a part-time comic on the way into doing other things. But all of my friends up to that point, from leaving the Air Force to starting a family, all those friends in between, all of them poets, comedians, writers, actors, performers of some kind, artists, that kind of thing. And like them, I was very much I suppose you could say left wing. I was very into I believed in equality. Well, I still do believe in equality. I believed in social justice, but back then it was a very different thing to what left wing is.
It was.
They're very different. They flipped it. Without getting complicated. But a lot of those friends that I have from that time are still in that paradigm.
Yeah.
And they see me on Facebook and they see me on YouTube, and they're like, "Oh, Jesus, Mark's." One of my friends who's very famous in the UK thinks I've joined a cult, a religion.
You're right.
Last time I saw him was in London in February. And I said, "Look, do you want me to explain what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking it?" And he was like, "Yeah, go on then." And I literally got 3 words out. He says, "Yeah, it sounds like you're in a religion. You joined a religion."
I was going to say, you got some kind of purchase on him even saying, "Yeah, sure, I'll listen."
Well, we're really close friends, and we still are.
Yeah.
But he did ring me at the beginning of the first lockdown, and he said, "Yeah, this was really funny." So he said, he was on the phone, and he goes, "Have you seen what Trump's done?" I said, "Yeah, no, it's amazing, isn't it?" And he went, "What?"
Yeah.
He went, "What?" And that was like, and I said, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh fuck, I don't want to lose my mate." I said, "Look, can we just agree not to talk about it and still be mates?"
Mm-hmm.
But it's become, what I'm finding is that people who don't know what's going on or aren't interested in what's going on behind the scenes are really boring anyway. They're just repeating stuff that they're getting off the TV. They don't want to talk about this stuff. And
I've traced it back to That's What the Fox Says. Do you remember that video? That's where everything flipped. Do you remember that video? No. That's what the fox says. It's really irritating. It got really popular. It was a couple of years before Gangnam Style. I don't know if you remember that video. Gangnam Style. It was this Korean fellow.
I was on a different channel there.
But that you've got that thing about the left switching to the right. Like, okay, so a long time ago, the left, what would they do? They would protest the war in Vietnam. They would show up and argue with the government. Now they don't want to have an argument. They don't want to talk about it. It's just, let's do this. You can't even say to someone, okay, you don't like Trump, so you're picking Biden because Trump's a racist. So what about Biden's history of his, what he has done in his legislative career that has affected black people? What do you think about that? Oh, shut up, you're a racist. Yeah. It's over. It's over. It's over. It's over. In fact, if you don't agree with the person, it's over.
He's done terrible things to black people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And he's been something else. I've been a political junkie my whole life. I mean, I remember that guy from a long time ago. And I fought when Obama picked him, I couldn't believe it. I thought, what is he doing with that old shirt? Yeah,
well,
new guy with all the thunder. But I was less so.
They both signed satanic covenants in their own blood. That's why. And I think it's pretty clear Biden killed his own wife and kid, and on his way up. Because this is the kind of shit you have to do to get up, because the guy's got no talent, no brains. And by the way, this isn't Biden. The Biden they just arrested and put the boot on, that's not Biden anyway. So we're watching theater.
Yeah, this whole ankle bracelet thing, is that what they're talking about, an ankle monitor?
Yeah, so they started this with John McCain, I think it was about 3 years ago. And he came, so that's the house arrest boots. Mm. And, and then and John McCain died. I think they do I think it's called it's not the Rommel death. It's one of the Nazis. They named it after one of the Nazis. And it was about whether if you did a deal, they'd let you go out with your reputation in the public intact if you did certain things, or they give you a suicide pill instead of shooting you. It's all this kind of.
Well, isn't there a Freemasonic code of some sort that you're supposed to be able to get away with your crimes, particularly in an upper echelon of Masonry, until you're dead? And that explains the Jimmy Savile no one knew anything about it. And then he dies, and a few days later, everything breaks open and it's mainstream.
And that's interesting to say that, because I think it's easy to say Masonic and not include Knights of Malta and not include.
Yeah, I'm generalizing, sure.
Yeah, I know, because they do have different codes, and I that's an interesting point. I've often thought about that, especially with Jimmy Savile. Was it because he was protected until he died? Because they didn't want the information. They wouldn't want that information to come out about him after he died either.
No.
So was it that, or was it because there is this shift in consciousness, and it's we're in the time of truth vibrations, and it's vibrational frequency time where, and this has certainly been true of my own life.
Yeah.
Anything that I've done wrong, I've had to suffer the consequences of. I've ever been.
You must be busy.
Very.
Yeah.
Suicidal. In fact, it was that bad.
Oh wow.
But now it's the time of. Do you remember that sitcom where the guy goes around the Karma, and it was a really good sitcom about 10 to 15 years ago, and he goes around every episode. He goes to somebody that he's wronged in his life and tries to fix it.
Oh sure, yeah. My name is Earl.
Yeah, I love that.
It was fun.
Yeah,
he's a Scientologist, that actor.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's probably not one of the good guys. But I was thinking of doing that on this channel. Ringing people up. Hey, do you remember me? Can I come round your house and clean your toilet or something to make up for the time that I forgot to buy you around in 1994?
And they won't want you there. They won't want you there because you're not supposed to come in. I had a joke. I had a couple of jokes going with the set that I had prepared for myself, so I can't do them now because they're kind of.
You're gonna have to do improv.
Yeah, I have to do improv. But basically, I was gonna ask you if it's okay. I had a chain of a small, very pathetic, deliberately pathetic-looking chain of lights, little tiny Christmas lights. They look pretty nice. And I was going to ask you, Mark, is it okay if I turn on these Christmas lights?
Oh.
I just need the permission to do this. Is there anyone I can call in government to turn them on? Because I know if I turn them on, I might be prone to put on some Christmas music. Now, I shouldn't play it too loudly, should I? Or not even sing at all. In my own home with a mask, shut up in the corner. Don't sing to your own music at home, and don't enjoy food. You can't even enjoy pub-style food in the microwave, never mind actually going to a pub. I mean, how much permission do these people really need to ask for anything? Is it okay, teacher, can I go to the bathroom and go potty? I mean, these people don't even understand. They have their own lives in front of them, and they have to ask the government permission for everything, for a Christmas gift. Is it okay if I see my mom? So I've lost friends because I ridiculed the fact, I have ridiculed the fact that they put a self-imposed barrier on visiting their own mother, who might have lived in a different province, who was healthy, and they were healthy, or pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic, or whatever they want to call it now, when you're healthy, and they won't go visit. They won't see each other, and they're asking permission. And this is, of course, I don't do that. And then I have received private messages about how I'm the worst person on the planet. I'm a scumbag. And this is the interesting thing that I've noticed about it, and the best way I can encapsulate it. If you look at what do they call it? A visual trick, like a three-dimensional trick. So say, for example, you look at a concave surface, a dip, and someone else sees a convex surface. If you look at a series of raindrops on the windscreen, that's your word, or something like that, and you see the opposite of what's there. And I think a lot of people are seeing that. And of course, they're going to say a person like myself or you are obviously nuts and seeing the wrong thing. But when I'm concerned about lockdowns, because I know people are killing themselves and they're so depressed and they can't get out, and they're just, what's life all about? I've had 80 years behind me. Now it's this garbage every week. And I say we shouldn't be doing the lockdowns. And then there's lots of science that'll back that up. But the same people will say, you're a terrible person. You're killing my grandmother by walking around living your life without a mask. And you're the reason that they're locked up. You're the reason that they're dying, not the lockdown itself. And you can't argue that anymore. Like there's no arguing it. It's just like separation time. It's one foot on the boat, 1 foot on the dock.
It's actually mental. I got a phone call the other day from a friend whose mum and dad died within 6 days of each other, a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And her dad was in England and had cancer, was 80 and died in hospital. But then her mum died in the nursing home 6 days later. And when she went to see her mum, and she'd had Alzheimer's, but she said that she was half the size she was last time she saw her in March. She was shrunken down. Her skin was all hard. There was fungus under her armpits, and there were bed sores all over her. And she was like, why didn't anybody ring me to tell me what was going on with my mum? Because they were told that they weren't, allowed to visit. Mm-hmm. And it was a really hard conversation, because I said on the phone, I said, this is policy.
Yeah.
The way that your mum got treated is policy coming from the government. And
including do not resuscitate orders, which we've had to deal with here. I don't know about your
not resuscitate, don't call the doctor, don't tell anybody what's wrong with them. I mean, I interviewed a person on my channel at the beginning who had a similar problem with her mum, but took her mum out and took her home. Fortunately, did it in time, and her mum's now fully back to health. But what is going on in nursing homes is manslaughter, and it's nothing to do with people like us not wearing fucking masks.
Yeah. Well, what you're seeing now is people doing things. It's kind of a wake-up call, to realize that you're putting your old folks in a home. Not everybody does that in the world. Not everybody has done that. And now you're finding out, because of these circumstances, whoa, that's a big problem. Similarly, sending kids into schools that are teaching whatever the hell they're indoctrinating them with, or not. And so, if you're participating in a little kids with masks on and separating their selves from each other, but still amazingly giving them breathing breaks outside, they still get to send them outside. So the masks are fine, but they still send them outside for a breathing break to be alone and take it off. So that's terrible. But they can't see the face. You can't read it. You can't understand the difference between a smirk and a smile and a twinkle in the eye and a fuck you in the eye. You can't read that as well with this on. And I think that if you keep ingesting that and taking that in as data as a young person growing up, you're not going to be able to process that kind of thing later when you're older. This is going to lead to, I can't really imagine the problems, but they're not going to be easily solvable. But this is because we institutionalize putting old people away, and because we've institutionalized cramming garbage into our children's heads. And there must be a way to, I don't have that situation anymore, but there must be a way to better embrace these older folks, and so they can still live their lives instead of being locked up in some facility.
Well, I mean, on the macro level, I think that's exactly what's going on in terms of this being a spiritual awakening. I've got this positive view that we're on a positive timeline, and this is a spiritual awakening. And in order to get to where we need to get as a race, enough people, there will be casualties. There are casualties. There are people dying.
Yeah.
There are kids suffering. My own kids are going through similar things. I mean, I've got 5 kids at 3 different schools. 2 of them in one school in particular. It's what's going on in that school is an absolute travesty, and I went in there the other day, and I nearly decked the headmaster. He was sat in his office wearing a mask on his own, and when he saw me without a mask inside his school, he nearly blew up.
Right.
And he had one of my books, and he had my daughter's phone, and I was like, he said, "Where's your mask?" And I was like, "I'm not wearing one." And he said, "Well, that's not how we do things around here." And I was like, "Well, that's how I do things around here. Can I have my book, please?" And I had to walk out. But my stomach was twisted, like, if he fucking comes in, right? Even this morning, I picked up my daughter to take her to school, and she was wearing the mask to get into the car. And she says it keeps her face warm. And I locked the door. So I'm not letting you in until you take that fucking thing off.
How old is she?
She's 14.
14,
like,
okay.
If you want to go around, every time you put that thing on your face, you are saying that I agree to servitude to...
That's the problem.
And I said, you've got to understand this. And
How have they done this though, Mark? How have they done this? Because earlier you had just wear it for a couple of weeks and then we're good. And then it wasn't that. And then it keeps going. And now it's like, just wear it until the vaccine comes. We're just waiting for a vaccine. Now the vaccines come, and you're getting them next week, available apparently. And they're now saying, well, when the vaccines come, you're still going to wear the mask and you're still going to, they keep incrementalizing this. And no one who goes along with this shit from the beginning is saying, wait a minute. They keep extending the parameters of control. They don't see it. How do they not see that?
I don't know. I really don't. That's why I'm talking about it on YouTube, because I did a video with my mum the other day, and people are going, "This is great. I need to," and they're showing it to their mum. Say, "Look, But even when we're talking to my mum, who, God bless her, she listens to me. She takes it all on board. But then I ring her the next day. She's gone straight back to the.
I saw the video. I watched your video with your mum. Yeah.
And then I rang her the next day and she said, I've decided that I probably won't have the vaccine. I was like, what do you mean you probably won't have the vaccine? She went, well, this nurse said it's okay. And I was like, Mum, it's a death sentence. What do you think?
I don't understand the equation. The equation is the available statistics show that it's a 99% positive, it's a 99% chance plus that you're going to get out of it if you're in it. It's a very high percentage chance that you were falsely tagged as a positive anyway. A positive doesn't necessarily mean a case. A case doesn't necessarily mean an infection. An infection doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to die, and to the point of 99. But let's take a vaccine that claims it's 5% less effective than that. Now, I don't even believe it's anywhere near that. I don't even believe you could come up with a number at this point. But let's say it is 95%. Let's say it is. Let's entertain that notion. So what you're saying is twice a year or so, you want to go and get this thing in your arm that's going to bring you side effects, so they say, that's not really going to kill the virus or prevent you from getting it, so they say. Fauci says this. It's going to mitigate some of the symptoms, and you're going to have a 5% lesser chance of, it's going to...
It's like,
I can't believe it. I don't see how they.
Nobody can do maths. Nobody can do science. Nobody can do. Everybody's forgot.
Can you imagine being an estate agent and you're taking a client around to a house? Now we've got this place here for $500,000. This other one is $450,000. It's smaller. It's more inconvenient, but you should get this one. And okay, well, it's $550,000. Okay, sounds good. Like, who is doing this? It's amazing to me.
And when you move into that £450,000 house, you'll probably die within 3 months. Yeah, I'm in. I'll take that one. So
it's a good one.
Was it Goebbels who said, all you need to control a population is fear. That's all you need. Once you've got fear, then you tell a lie. I think it was Hitler said, when you tell a lie, tell the.
I see people. It's a heroin. It's a drug. I think so, because I didn't come up with that. I read about it and it makes sense to me. And I posted something about it the other day. But if you're like adhering to these fear factor ways of living, and someone comes along and says, well, did you know, and as a matter of fact, this is better and this is okay. And this has been shown to, I've even used actual clips of Fauci saying, asymptomatic people, oh, hey, you're just trying to get everybody sick. You don't understand. I'm quoting the fucking guy that you're praying to, for God's sakes, but it's outside of the parameter. I've heard so many people telling me how they're listening to doctors and science, as long as it's the doctors and science in this little box, but not these fellows over here, not these German people, not those other doctors, there's a guy in Canada who is, I forget his name, Dr. Richardson or something, just an amazing audio tape. And he's starting to make the rounds now of, like, just without any kind of uncertainty, the inefficacy of masks. Of course, all the studies that are out there now, and I don't know how they pulled it off.
There's a Canadian. I think there's one of the companies that makes the tests, and I think it was in Canada. And one of the doctors one of the directors of the company stood up, did an interview, and said these masks, not only do they not work, this is the biggest fraud perpetuated on humankind. The tests don't work. And even if the test did work, it could only be a diagnosis from a trained medical person. And these test results are not going through that protocol. This is the biggest fraud in history. This is the guy who owns a company who makes the fucking tests. Yeah. You put that up on Facebook, and then I get people on there go,
that's the Yeah, it's amazing. What I've had an argument with my doctor about it. I have to go to the hospital. I was there yesterday doing tests. They will not let anyone in without a mask.
This is
Okay,
mad.
they won't.
You're going to have to talk to camera while I answer the door because there's post just arrived. So you can run the show.
Oh, the post has arrived. Oh, okay.
For 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll do a little recap
Do a
of
little
why
recap.
we're even having a chat. Well, while Mark is gone revealing the style and shape of his chair, let me just say that thanks for watching. And Mark is a very funny guy, and I met him 21 years ago, and we did a gig together and had a fantastic series of conversations over 12 or 15 hours, and then never saw the man again. And it's been great to reconnect and understand what's going on in the world from a similar perspective, even though we haven't spent really any time together at all. And so it's nice to be here face to face, or in this case, face to chair. It's a very nice chair. There's a couple of chairs there. You've got one with a headrest, and another one probably has some books on it. I'm kind of running out of things to say, Mark, because
It's really, really good to be on the Alan Park Show. How's it going? Great to be back.
So was that an Amazon delivery or something, or was that a drone at your door? What happened?
Little box of goodness.
Nice.
I'm getting stuff delivered all the time. This morning
Nice.
I got this. Look, you like that?
Oh, is that a pH test?
Yeah, I did a pee on this earlier.
Oh, okay, nice.
Very pleased that I was 6.
6, that's really good. So your friend was talking about alkaline diet. I've been down that street many times. I try to do that as best I can. Right now it's difficult, but I understand it, and I work towards that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just got, wait there a sec.
This is okay, so that's the chair that Mark sits in. And there we go.
I got this as well.
What's that?
Alkaline minerals. So
sure.
If it's too far up here, just have a bit of this, get it balanced out again. It's very, very important. We all are alkaline. Very, very important. I learned this years ago. I think it was a Dr. Robert O. Young.
That's right.
Miracle. I read that. I was 18 stone. I was in hospital with a suspected heart attack. I couldn't walk to the shops without getting shin splints. I was a mess.
Wow.
I had too much cortisone. And I went on a fast for a week in a place called Ham Farm in Devon, which I thought was hilarious for a place to go.
Ham Farm?
Yeah. And didn't eat for a week. Changed my life, you know. My wife at the time said I was a heart attack waiting to happen. I actually nearly had a couple. So alkalinity is really, really, really fucking important.
Speaking of which, next week when you guys get vaccines, I understand
that vaccines.
They're not there?
There's no vaccines.
Are they not rolling out some kind of plan next week?
No, it's all theater.
It's all theater. So, I mean, we have the leaders of the world now saying, I'll get the shot. I'll get it. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to believe that?
When they do it, they're like this, and they go, oh! It's like
the cap. I saw one in Canada, and the cap was still on.
Oh, look, here I go eating this pen. Look. Oh, the pen's gone.
And they go for it. I know.
Oh shit.
The notion that people want it is amazing.
Oh no! I've been going on about vaccines on my Facebook page for years, right?
Yeah.
I've had people attacks, blah blah blah. An old friend of mine put up the other day, I don't care what's in this vaccine. If it gets this pandemic over, I'm in the front of the queue. And I'm like,
amazing. Yeah.
Do you know, this is why I call people self-slaughtering sheep.
That's incredible. Yeah, I know people saying the same thing. I can't wait till it comes. Can't come soon enough, and then I can get right back to what I was doing before. No, you can't. No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
You won't
at
be
all.
human. You won't even be human.
Yeah.
Why? If you're going to stick something in your arm with a needle, why wouldn't you read the ingredients, go and get one person's opinion, get another opinion, read around the subject? Yeah. I wouldn't stick anything in me unless I'd done some fucking research.
Yeah. And there is nanotech in it.
Yeah.
It's not hard. You can just go vaccines, nanotech, Google, bang. There's a whole bunch of articles. And still, I've been told I'm insane for saying this, for reading practically the label on the box. I'm the crazy one, right? Not the person that makes it, not the person who takes it.
There's a doctor I interviewed on my channel called himself Dr. Q, and he has a 30-year medical career in the US.
Yeah.
And then one day he decided to read the ingredients in a vaccine. And when he read it, he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And he said he'd never read them. And then he's given up his career and he's written a book called Dr. Q. It's on my channel.
Well, let's see what's on the side of the box of whatever they're alleging is the AstraZeneca, the Pfizer ingredients. What's in there? You know, I mean, that's what I want to see. I want to see this vaccine and take it to a laboratory and see if you can test it any better than you take the vaccine and give it a PCR test.
You know what I think? I really do think it's theatre. There's no way that there's a vaccine. They're telling us, they're putting everything in plain sight. I think they've been trying to wake people up, and they're amazed at how difficult it is to wake people up while mainstream media is still pumping out their crap. So they're doing this kind of comedy stuff, right? I mean, you see Joe Biden the other day, 1 minute the boot's on one foot, and then it's on the other foot the next day.
Yeah, I posted that yesterday, and someone brought up a good point, though, that this particular picture that I used was the dog throws a shadow on him, but it doesn't throw a shadow on the cast that's on the wrong leg. So maybe, I don't know what's going on, but look, I don't understand the whole clone thing. I'm just going to say that right now. I don't have any knowledge of that.
Well, look, I was having this conversation today. I just got back. I've just had my awake men's morning, right? It's like guys in the woods, right? Just go for a walk, you know, see the game last night, all that kind of shit. And we had the same conversation this morning. And I said, well, look, is the idea of a clone really that difficult to believe? If you think about Dolly the sheep, that was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And if you understand that the technology they show us is usually 30 years.
Biden with Biden clone. Why would I do that?
Sorry, did we cut off there? What did you say?
Oh, I said, why would I want to replace? I understand Dolly the sheep, and I remember that, but why would I want to replace? Like, what's the purpose of having? Okay, so put it this way: the real Joe Biden has done horrible things in his career, and we all know this, or we don't all know this, but if you're up on it, you're aware of his legislative history as being oppressive, and especially to Black people, etc. So you get rid of him, or he's gone, or he's locked up, or he's no longer with us, or whatever it is, and now you have a clone kind of doing the same thing. Like why not just? Well, I don't understand. Why would you have the clone do the same thing as the real guy?
I have the answer to this, right?
Okay.
If firstly, this is where I come from in the first place. If the bad guys were really in charge, we'd already be dead. So that's just where I'm at. That's what gives me calmness every single day, despite all the madness, right? Okay. Because they wanted us dead. Right. And it would have been nuclear, and I think this virus was backup plan. So if you understand and believe that, then you think about it. I've thought deeply about how do you take down something so deeply ingrained into this earth, literally with tunnels that are hundreds of miles deep, some of them, and cities underground, and a whole other world exists beyond our reality. And they have controlled the whole human race for thousands and thousands of years. They own all the banks, all the land, all the institutions. They control all the education, all the media, everything. As George Carlin said, right? Everything. They own everything. Mm-hmm. They're in a big club, right? How do you take them down? Well, you've got a number of choices. You could do a military coup, right? So if you've got, control of a big enough military to be able to take them out, then yeah, you could come in, take them all out, be a nightmare. They'd be running away and escaping and all of that kind of stuff. I think that full frontal approach was really what JFK was trying to do. And they learned the hard way that they were far more powerful than they probably realized. So I think they regrouped and they looked at it and they thought, right, we've got to play them at their own game. Because they do all this smoke and mirrors and subterfuge and lies and mind control and everything else. And if we did have enough power to go in and take them out, that would cause enormous damage to the human race. I mean, the riots in the streets, the deaths, the collateral damage would have been monstrously huge. We'd have talked about hundreds of millions of people probably dying in civil wars and breakouts and everything else. So what's the idea? Well, let's take them out by infiltration over a very long period of time, because that's what they've done to us. If you know about organizations in the UK, like Common Purpose, for example, that is an organization that purports to be a kind of continuous professional development company for teachers and people who work in local government and stuff like that. It's actually exactly the same as the Masons. It pulls people in at this bottom level. The ones that are psychotic get moved up and moved up and moved up, and then they get pushed into positions of power. This is why you've got people like Tony Blair and Barack Obama becoming leaders of the free world. They're these complete arseholes that just came out of nowhere, and then suddenly they're in the most powerful positions on the planet because they are puppets of the satanic cabal. So if you assume, let's just call the satanic cabal the bad guys, and let's say that there's this alliance of good guys, this plan of taking over, getting rid of, cutting the head of the snake off, and then bringing these massive institutions down via playing out the theatrical story of by replacing certain people and getting them to play it out, so that they're building up a story. Because, you know, as we've just both said, if you stand and start lecturing somebody about the way the world is, they don't listen, they clam up.
That's right.
And it actually makes them their position firmer, because you become more of a threat to them. So they just la 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 la. They do that. And I think these guys are intelligent enough. They understand the human race as better than anybody, the same as the bad guys did. And they're using the same weapons against them. So what we've got now is this movie theater thing playing out, and they're showing us what these guys would have done to us if we'd let them, so that they can say that, look, now you understand who they are. Look at what we showed you. Look at what they were going to do to you. They were going to put this. You agreed to put this thing inside you with nanotechnology, RNA rewriting, DNA rewriting technology, CRISPR genes, baby fetus, bits of babies. What the fuck were you thinking? And I think this really is a biblical end of 26,000 year cycle, probably bigger than the end of times. We're in Revelations, we're in Armageddon, we're in all of that right now. Apocalypse basically means new beginning, right? So don't stop me on that. Anybody that thinks I'm wrong, don't bother with the comments. It's something like that if it's not that. And we're going into a complete rebirth. But in order to go through a rebirth, there has to be the death of the systems. And these systems are very, very powerful and have been there for a very, very long time. We're talking about the banking system, the whole financial, the governments, everything is going to go down to be reborn. And in order to do that, people have to learn. It's like if you bring out a new product, and if you're a CEO of a business and you're a startup, you bring out a new product that's a disruptive product. You have, in marketing terms, you have early adopters, right? So there's people that are early adopters and they run with it and they go, hey, I just bought this. This is one of my CBD bombs, by the way. Okay. I'm not selling. I am selling these actually. So yeah, this is product placement. I'm doing product placement on my own fucking show. I didn't mean to do that. It's just here, right? So this early adopter goes out and tries it on and goes, oh, this is fucking brilliant. Puts it all over social media. And then other people go, oh, I like that. So in marketing, because you know I've been working in marketing for 30 years, right? Marketing, in the 1920s, a Hollywood producer worked out that people needed to be exposed to the idea of going to one of his movies 7 times on average before they made the decision to buy a ticket. That number is now more like 70, right? So
say that again, sorry, to buy a ticket?
Buy a ticket to go and see a movie, right? This is why the star system became a thing. Okay. So they worked out that if they put Jimmy Cagney above the title of the film, Jimmy Cagney in White Heat, right? If they put that 7 became 2. So they made a lot more money because, hey, it's a Jimmy Cagney movie. I'm going to go see it because Jimmy Cagney's in it, not because I have to be convinced about what the fucking story is.
Right.
And there were no trailers unless you went to the cinema. And to get a human being to make a decision about buying into an idea, they need to be exposed to it so many times now. It's huge.
Well, what do you, on that note then, so how do you see this playing out, what I'm about to say? So things are going on behind the scenes. Even you and I don't know what they all are. And then there are other people, loads of people not 80 million maybe, but a lot of people are convinced and happy about the fact that Joe Biden is going to be the president and he won the election and that's that. So when they alter and you know, Sidney Powell and, you know, whatever it is, whatever the different planks are, from bogus ballots to stuffed thumb drives to whatever they can show, and they say, look, here's all this evidence that that election was fraudulent and those results aren't true. Okay, fine. Even if you can prove that, like I can show someone 12 studies of masks prior to the release of COVID. 5 years ago in Ontario, the nurses here said, look, we're not going to take a flu shot and we're not going to wear a mask. We don't believe in that. And there was a big struggle. There was a legal struggle with their union. And, you know, people weren't as on board then, because even though flu was killing as many people as now, no one was wearing a mask. But the nurses were saying, no, we're not going to do that. And they won. And so they didn't have to wear them. But we don't remember that. That's all memory hold now. But if you show someone a series of facts, they say, I listen to the science, but they won't read that science, right? So if you show them, which means nothing more than knowledge. So if you show science, so if you show people the science of how the cheating went and how, you know, he didn't really get all those numbers and how more people really selected the other team, the people that, particularly the radicalized ones, the ones that are, you know, Molotov cocktailing, and what are they going to do? They're not going to give it. They're not going to say, oh, I see. Oh, we were wrong. Oh, okay, fine. All right, well, Trump it is then. Like, they're not going to go like that. They're not going to go like that.
Well,
and I just wonder, what do you see? Like, it's going to be a mess.
It's a very, very good question. And I don't know the answer, but I have an inkling about what this could be. So
there's a window of time where we're going to see it, though, because the alleged, you know, the swearing in is the 20th or whatever of January. So something's going to happen before that.
Well, I absolutely agree. I think in the next 8 weeks, we're going to see unbelievably extraordinary things that we've never seen in history. On the 3D level, what you just said is kind of a description of the 3D level. On the so that's, you know, I don't know what they could do to avoid those brainwashed kids in BLM and Antifa and all of that, not, you know, pulling out the machine guns that Soros has delivered for them last month and then just shooting the shit out of everybody. I think that's why there's been military placed everywhere. I think this whole vaccination program of Trump's, and it's happening in Ireland, it's happening in Spain, it's happening in France, is that they're placing military everywhere so that they can nip it in the bud on this on the 3D level. On the 5D level, if you want to call it, you know, you can call it what you want, but we've got this ascension codes thing happening on the 21st of December, which has been prophesized throughout history by all the indigenous tribes around the world. This alignment of planets, this solar flare, this whole thing does sound extremely plausible to me as a rational thinking, spiritual being in a human body. That you know, I think something magical is going to happen. I think that it could be like if you suddenly activated a load of deactivated pineal glands, you're going to have a completely different human race.
Wow.
And we have the majority of the human race with deactivated pineal glands. There are people watching this saying, well, the pineal gland's part of the matrix, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is that the pineal gland creates DMT, it creates your dreams, and it creates your visions, and it's your telephone line to God.
It's also integral in healing. It's also it's the crown jewel. I used to call it, you know, do you have Mack trucks in
yeah, well, I'm familiar with. They're the ones that take the logs in Canada, the big ones with the front.
Yeah. And on the front of the hood, right in front, like, you know, between the headlights up on the grill is a bulldog. That's their logo, or a jaguar on the hood of a Jaguar. So the pineal gland is that to the immune system. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah. The Jaguar logo, the actual silver thing that people want to steal off. That's the key right there. Yeah. And so, you know, getting temperature gunshots in the head and everything is a bad idea. But
you called it the crown.
Yeah.
Right. And what's this
Corona?
Coronavirus. This is the crown. Virus of the crown. I don't know if you watch Charlie Freak, but he talks about heaven being in your head and left brain to right brain. This is the whole Bible is actually an allegory for inside our heads, and heaven's here, and you've got to go to the right to become righteous, and pineal gland's all part of that. And my own personal journey with the pineal gland has been going on for a good 10 years. And when you get visions from that, it is extraordinary. It's impossible to describe to somebody who's never had one. But the thing is, we've all got the ability. And the people that I'm seeing around me in the masks in the car, I mean, I saw 4 people in the car with masks on. I just laughed at them. And they were like this. What's he laughing at?
Well, I'll give you this. That makes a little more sense, technically speaking, than one person in a car alone with a mask on.
Yeah.
All right, I saw a picture. I put it on Facebook. It's someone put they've got the masks taped, push pins over the air vents in the car. So.
No.
That's amazing.
You can't make this shit up. You cannot. No. I mean, this is comedy gold. However, there's not a single comedy club you can say this shit in.
Well, most of the people I know that are comedians would never talk to me again.
No.
And I'm astounded, and that's fine, whatever. That's the way things go. But I'm astounded at the level of conformity, all right, that fuels the mindset of their jokes, their routines. Like I've even laughed at some bits and jokes that people have said about, anti-mask and like I can see the humor in their point of view, and I still laugh at it, even though I happen to think it's wrong. Shouldn't say that. I don't get angry about it. Well, I still see the point of it, but where's the critical thinking? I mean, that's incredible. There used to be that, you telling me George Carlin would be running around with a mask right now? Are you kidding me?
No fucking way. I mean, this is, these guys 30 years ago, I've been on poll tax marches, anti-war marches with these guys. Now they're just like, boom. And it's because there's a book, I'm looking for it. There was I've forgotten his name, but there was a guy that worked in the American government for a very long time. He wrote a book about the global chessboard, and there's another guy called F. Engel.
Zbigniew Brzezinski?
Yeah.
Okay. The Grand Chessboard, 1997.
That's right. And there's a guy that I saw do a talk a few years ago, and I've got some of his books called F. William Engel, I believe. And he wrote a book called Full Spectrum Dominance. And when I read that, I saw him speak, I was like, Jesus, this goes so deep. It goes so deep. Even I as somebody who spent 30,000 hours reading, studying, doing everything I can to learn as much as I can over 20, 30 years now, I couldn't believe how deep this goes in terms of how much because this is a war for this is a war for human consciousness.
Give me that name again. F. William Engel, did you say? Full Spectrum Dominance.
Engel, yeah, I think it is.
You can just Google that, and I remember reading about that. I think it was around the time I met you or shortly thereafter. Full Spectrum Dominance sounds like a military term where you're going to have control of not only your country but the other country. Everything. Right. So that's where I started. Oh, so they want to control, everything. And then it's like, and space, right? And the seas and everything in this body and everything that you think and everything of your essence.
Every single
full spectrum.
People don't realize Facebook put a patent up, which I viewed a year or two ago. I haven't checked it recently, so I don't know if it's still up. But most patents get published online. You can go and look them up. Facebook put a patent up stating very clearly that they wanted to upload human consciousness to the web. Right?
Yeah, I don't know how you would even do that.
That was exactly. But their technology is way ahead. We've been kept in the Stone Ages for at least 100 years. Yeah. Look at the car, look at your internal combustion engine, and then look at your phone. And then compare one in 10 years to the other in 10 years. They've been withholding technology. It's obvious. And there's technology out there I was talking about it to my mum with the Royal Raymond Rife machine from 100 years ago. He could cure every single disease through frequency.
Vibrational frequency, right?
It's all gone. Where's that technology? Why isn't it in the hospitals? And once you start getting that, but the level, so to answer your question, the water, the food, the TV, the radio waves, the Wi-Fi, everything has been designed to get people into this state of hypnosis where they literally don't hear what you're saying. They can't hear. We're in a post-truth society. Why some of us are impervious to this, I do not know, because there are things that just
there've been so many reveals. Like there's been a massive percentage of society who have always wanted to work at home. They said, well, I don't know why I have to commute back and forth every day. You know, there was an accident. It took me an hour and a half. This is crazy. I can do my job from home. And the companies, no, you have to come in, you have to do. And then as soon as this event takes place, oh yeah, everybody's at home. You know, unless you're a delivery man or stocking grocery shelves.
Well, the guy,
the people, and they don't say, hey, this is amazing.
The guy who just came to the door with this.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why I ran to the door is because I know that if I didn't go, he'd take it away. He wouldn't leave it at the door. So I came outside and I said, do I have to sign for this? And he said, no, you don't have to sign for it. And he got a mask on, right?
Yeah.
He said, you don't have to sign for it. It's just that we have to see you take it because of COVID. And I'm like, what? Because of a fucking mythical, non-existent piece of bullshit that you've never...
But you were okay leaving it on my porch 2 years ago when the flu was high. Okay. When no one was wearing a mask. Have you seen, that's another thing. The flu statistics have plummeted everywhere. I mean, they're just borrowing it. I mean, you're just putting the costume on a new thing.
Wholesale taking it.
And I know people that have, I've heard stories of people in my own town here, and I've read stuff where people get tests in old folks' homes, negative, and then they die from a heart attack or something because they're 90 years old or whatever it is, and they list it as COVID. I mean, by the time you sit down and even try, you want to hear the science, you try to tally up how many people have died that were told, you know, it was COVID, it was a motorcycle accident or something else. And you're told it's COVID. And then by the time you crunch the numbers on the PCR tests, by the time you look at the all-cause death statistics of Canada anyway, I haven't looked everywhere, we're in the same pocket. I mean, the numbers are the same as they were last year and the year before of people of dying. And I just, you know, this whole thing of going back and forth with lockdowns when lockdowns don't work, I see it at a place where people have been completely brainwashed to the point where they just keep going along with it. It must be out of fear because they're still saying just until the vaccine comes, and you say, okay, now they say the vaccine's here, and they're still wearing the mask, they're still doing it, and they're saying they're going to have to do it. I mean, how much longer can you be strung along? Here's the answer. The more shit of that you build up and accept, the more crushing it's going to be intellectually and emotionally later when it's finally revealed that it was all bullshit. If you snapped out of it in May and said, oh, well, this mask is crazy, the numbers have been going down. Hey, it's only the people wearing the masks out of panic that are rushing off to get tested where the numbers are going up anyway. I haven't been tested. I don't wear a mask unless I had to go to the hospital and they made me wear the mask. In the hospital, they get procedures. Until I was on the machine, then I could take it off. But they won't let you in. But people are voluntarily wearing them. And I just don't understand why they can't see that the narrative has been changing constantly. I don't know how they...
What did Aldous Huxley say in the 1920s?
Oh, that they would love to be, they would love this drug and they would do anything for it. I mean, but you had to work your way towards that.
It's Stockholm syndrome.
It is, but you had to work your way towards that. You know, I mean, the people at the very beginning of this, who I know, who were saying, just wear the mask for 50, just wear it for 2 weeks. That's all. We need to do this to stop the spread. And that was the whole story. But as it keeps re-extending, they don't seem to realize that they're re-extending, and they don't seem to care. And then when you say, keep this up, it's going to go on for years, they call you nuts. And then when the government says it's going to go on for years, they say, listen to the science.
Exactly.
Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So I'm glad you have a good point of view on it. I'm really fascinated to see what these next 2 months will bring before when things turn around in Washington or wherever. It's going to be interesting. I mean, you got the Pope out there telling you to take a vaccine.
That's not the Pope.
I know, but people think it's the Pope telling you to take a vaccine. It's completely counter to their original teachings.
I think they want people to get to the point where they do it. It's you cannot arrest the shoplifter until they've walked out of the shop.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
so Biden had to commit fraud for him to be legitimately arrested and people to accept the takedown of those guys. You've got Big Pharma. They could take down Big Pharma with this, because once they've committed the crime, they can show people. There may be some damage with people, I don't know. But how do you take down such a powerful power? People don't realize how powerful Big Pharma is. And what they also,
No.
and the other thing they don't realize is it's not about the money. This has never been about the money. This is about the human soul and consciousness. This is what it is. We are a conscious energy farm, and we get bled dry. We've been bled dry generations after generation. So let me tell you this, Alan. Let me tell you this.
Okay. Yeah.
A good friend of mine is a very, very powerful medium. And a couple of weeks ago, one of her friends hung herself, right? And she was distraught about this, obviously. But then she tapped into her. And the other day, she got a message from her friend from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And she described it like this. She said, we're in a white space. This white area is like a void. We're supposed to ascend, but we've been told the machine's broke. We can't ascend. We can't reincarnate. And it's like, ooh. And what, on a spiritual level?
Because you killed yourself.
No, nothing to do with that. Because we're in this transition. We're in another dimension right now. There's been a transition, and there's this rebirth of Earth is happening. And if you go back, and this sounds nuts to some people, I know, but if you go, the reason it resonates with me is because many years ago I was studying the mystery schools. The mystery schools I was introduced to by reading the works of Stuart Wilde, who wrote Infinite Self and books like that. And when you look into the mystery schools, one of the things they teach in there is that this Earth, it was a facsimile of the real Earth. The real Earth is much bigger, far more colorful, far more beautiful, and everything's gorgeous. This Earth was created as a facsimile, and it's a kind of, it's a farm, it's a soul trap. So what happens is you come here, you incarnate, you get born, you have your life, you die, and then your soul goes up to heaven, but it kind of hits this ceiling, right? And then you reincarnate, you come back down, and you just keep getting recycled while they're just feeding, while these demons are feeding off you. That is the Earth that we were in. The Earth we're going into doesn't have that. And we're in this transition, which is why I believe that she got that message from her departed friend.
Well, that's heartening, because I don't know, I've never really understood where you go when you kill yourself. I had a guy the other day, he's a local in town, young guy. He's struggling, he's got some issues. Nice guy though, and I chat with him every time I go past, and it was a horrible day, just weather crazy, snow coming down. And he said, "Hi, brother." And I said, "Hi." I'm plodding through the snowstorm, and he says, and he's drunk, and he had a bag of chips, and he says, crisps, I should say. And he says, "I'm gonna kill myself." And he says, I'm gonna kill myself. I can't do this anymore. And I had to get somewhere. And I just said to him, "Don't do it." Now, maybe what I said is false based on what you said, but it seems to have worked. I said this, I said, don't kill yourself, because however shitty, whatever it is that you're going on with right now that you want to kill yourself, once you kill yourself, that's where you are forever. You're stuck in that same shit. So ride it out for a day or a week or a year or 2 years, and later you'll be in a better place. I've never been okay with suicide and as an option. And I think it's a very obviously self-destructive to the flesh, but it's self-destructive to the spirit. Now this guy, he just went, okay, sensei, thank you, brother, I love you. And then he started going nuts. And then I saw him the next day, and he was smiling and waving at me. So even if I was wrong, I hope that helped him not do that. You know what I mean? But I'm really, it's a person's own choice. I'm not here to tell anyone to do or not do something, but just that whole notion of suicide is very sad to me. So many people I know have taken their lives, and so many people. The very first guy to put me on a professional gig in Vancouver. So before I met you, took his own life. He used to manage a club in Vancouver, a comedy club. And I really liked him. He was very smart. A lot of people knew him, and he just took his own life. And then what do people say? I just saw him the other day. He seemed fine,
Yeah. I've lost count of the suicides in my own life, and
Yeah, it's awful.
I I never understood it. I always thought, well, I always looked at it from the point of view, when I'm having so much fun, you're going to miss out on it. Yeah, and sometimes you have a crap day, but then there's these great days. There's these great times. Until I got to the point where I seriously contemplated it, I never understood it, and I had to get taken right to rock bottom on my own personal journey in order for me to. I was explaining this to the guy in the woods this morning. I said, he said, "Oh, I've just watched you on YouTube. I didn't realize it was you." And I was like, "Yeah, well, don't worry about that." I said, he said, how can how can you say all this stuff out in public? And I said, because I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
And
that's true. Yeah.
what do you mean? I said, because I've been to rock bottom. I thought about taking my own life. Once you've been there,
Yeah.
there's nothing to lose going forward.
This explains a lot of the fear that I don't have about a lot of things that I can say that I used to have, but I learned a long time ago, and this is pre-cancer too. This is pre-cancer. I don't know if you know a comedian who lives in England, another Canadian guy, good friend of mine. His name is Craig Campbell.
Oh, what? I love Craig. Well, this is the funny thing. I've just realized. I met. Hang on. When did we meet?
You probably met him after you met me.
No, I think it was before you, because
Really?
I turned up to Edinburgh. I think it was '98. I was in Edinburgh doing a play called Rita Sue and Bob Too, and I also had a comedy sketch show. And I met Craig with two other comedians, Glenn Wool and Stuart.
Yeah, Glenn's a friend too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to say hello to them, because they will remember me. Because I was actually thinking about Craig the other day, because he got a piece of paper out and he said, if you ever come to Canada, I've got a log cabin up in the hills of Vancouver. And he wrote out all the instructions. You walk up here, and it was like 3 pages how to get to his log cabin. And he said, be careful of bears. I still don't know if he was joking to this day.
No, not joking. Let me tell you a quick story about, this is how I realized.
He did a naked poem at the end of the gig, and I love that man. He was brilliant.
Is it accidental? I thought so earlier, but I realize now through the course of my life, I just turned 58 a while ago, and I realized that I have been through a lot of series of events, and it gets down to elemental, so water, fire. Years ago, I was on a flight and on an airplane going across the prairies of Canada, and there was an electrical storm, a lightning storm, and you're in trouble when the staff, the airline attendants are freaking out and crying and getting nuts. And this plane was going up and down. I mean, plates of food were flying through the air. It was horrifying. And I was horrified to find out that I wasn't horrified. I just sat there going, well, this is completely out of my hands. Years later, and that's air. So I feel like I've conquered the element of air through that somehow, through good fortune and maybe genetics, and I don't know, maybe something I read when I was a kid, who knows. Craig and I were on a tour in '94. It's like 5 years before I met you, and we were on a ferry that was going from Prince Rupert, Canada, which is on the west coast, way north. I mean, it's almost up in Alaska. And we were taking a ferry from there over to the Queen Charlotte Islands. And that's a normal run. Apparently there were 5 ships in that particular time at that moment. And the storm that we encountered, that we got sucked into, and they couldn't get us out of it. It was like they couldn't find safe harbor. We were getting tossed around. The skies were getting worse. It was insane. It was a movie. Later, there was a movie called The Perfect Storm with George Clooney that I saw just for the sake of seeing how they created the stuff at sea. And it was really not a bad representation at all in that way. And I wasn't scared at all. This isn't bragging. I don't know what was going on. Craig was asleep for the first hour. He didn't even know what was going on. People were throwing up. Kids were running around. There was vomit in the bathroom. People were panicking. I was at the front of this ship holding onto a steel ring that was coming out of the bulkhead, looking through a porthole, watching as we were going through 20-foot swells. Now, a 20-foot swell that's one thing, but if it's up against a 20-foot, another, that's 40 feet. And this thing would just take elevator plunges and crash. You could hear the plates and the cookware in the where you could eat smashing. We were out there for something like 18 hours in what was supposed to be a 5-hour sail.
Wow.
And I was never scared. And that is incredible to me. I mean, it was arduous, but it wasn't frightening. And so this kind of thing has gone on. I've had a fire where my house got wiped out on New Year's Eve. I always had a thing against fire. And a few years ago, I was able to come to terms with that. And I feel like those elements of fire, water, all that stuff is ancient knowledge for people to conquer the elements. And sometimes you're doing it, you don't even realize you're doing it. But in retrospect, I was able to see. So when I say this, why am I saying this? Because I'm not afraid of whatever it is that's going on. I'm not afraid of this disease. I don't think I haven't had a cold or a flu in quite some time, despite having cancer. But if I do, sure, I'll get through it like I have every other time in my life earlier. And this whole hysteria that's coming from the news media and the social media is causing a fear that is so crystallized to me. I could see it like an object. Like, you know, people are praying to this object. And as soon as you bring in a fact, a realization that's safe, that's more safe for them and brings them comfort, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. It's incredible. So I find myself very distant from most people now. And because you have to be anyway. But I mean on a relating level, except for people like yourself. And this is how everything seems to be coming forward. Like people are coming out of the past and you're meeting new people that you click with better than you've ever clicked with anybody before. And it's a very strange and interesting time. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Well, same here. And it's and this is actually a real privilege to be here to witness this, because whichever way it goes, it's fucking extraordinary, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Extraordinary on every level. And it's like, I just wake up and go, oh, wow, what's going to happen today? You know?
That's it.
It's like living in a movie. It's like,
it is.
I'm expecting giant fucking tripods to come over the hills and start zapping people with lasers. It wouldn't surprise me, and I wouldn't give a shit. But, you know, what you just said made me think of this morning with my men's group. When we all get together, we all give each other a hug, right? And then one of them, who's a great guy, he said, "Do you know why we give this hug?" And I said, "Yeah, it's the hug of freedom." And he said, "That's exactly it. That's what it's about." And it's if I don't go on the walk with these guys once a week now, I feel detached.
Well, as long as you've got a letter of permission from Matt Hancock, I don't have any problem with it.
Well, I'm in a different country, unfortunately, but it's worse. I mean, last week, walking through the woods, there were 6 or 7 of us, and then these 2 guys walked through us, and we could hear them on the phone. Yeah, there's 6 of them, 2 dogs. Yeah, they're not wearing masks.
Really?
In a fucking forest.
Yeah. So were they COVID marshals, or were they just concerned citizens?
2 citizens reporting us. And then like this group came out of the woods, all with masks on, right? All with masks on. They got out a fold-up table, put a picnic, sat down, took their masks off.
It's amazing. I know. I know. There's this giant. What you guys call it, perspex? Is it plexiglass? We call it
perspex,
plastic. And so you got a big plastic thing with a giant hole in it. And you're putting your hand through, and it's going through there. So the virus is going, oh, okay, I'll just stop right here then.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that? There's a meme going around that literally had me on the floor, and not often that happens. And it was a picture of Bush Senior, Reagan, and a few of the other guys from the 80s, black and white picture of them all drinking cocktails, doubled up laughing, right? And underneath it said, and then we told them, just stand on these dots in the shop, that'll save your life.
Yeah.
People in the shops, like, Jesus, you're 2 millimeters off. It's like.
But if I told you last year, Mark, I know you're in marketing, you want to get in on floor stickers. Trust me on this. You'd think I was out of my mind. Got a hot tip. Floor stickers with arrows. Oh my goodness. Please respect the arrows.
That's a good dollar. The floor sticker dollar is a good dollar.
Yeah, it's a good dollar. It's going to be in every store. It is. It's pretty sad in a way, but it's also very funny.
I did actually invest in a foreclosure sticker company, and that's doing very well. Their stock's very high right now. Oh, we got the
foreclosure company. Oh yeah.
Foreclosure sticker company.
Are you a pub guy still? We had some beers. Do you go to the pub? What's happening in your local pub?
Well, that's it. They've all been closed all year.
Yeah.
And
so, but the plan being that they won't be opening again, or what's?
Well, I was in a shop yesterday, and the guy served me. He's the brother of the landlady of a pub here. That's a very nice pub.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Is this pub's ever going to open up in Ireland again?" I mean, Ireland is the pub country of the world.
Sure. Yeah.
And I have a sneaking suspicion that Ireland's had a much heavier restriction on pubs than any other country during this year. And I'm wondering if that's actually part of Ireland's specific. So I've got this kind of view that each country is getting the medicine that it needs in order to spiritually awaken the people. And pub culture here is huge, and the beer is shit. And it used to be good, but I was talking about Guinness this morning. It's full of fluoride. It's full of terrible shit.
Oh no, is that a fact?
Yeah, because they make it with the water. Anyway, look, the point is, to answer your question, the pubs have not opened, and but people are drinking at home.
Sure.
And I was like, well, that's weird, because they've systematically destroyed pub culture in this country over the last 15 years anyway. But this is like, they're not opening up. Right. It doesn't make any sense, because you can go to a restaurant, but you can't go into a pub.
Yeah. Well, what else goes on at a pub? There's a lot of chatting. I mean, you and I were speaking about all of these things during, before, and after pub activity, and look at what's happened to us. We have connected on a level that's lasted 2 decades with hardly any connection in between. You've got ideas and understandings that I have, and we've never shared them over the past 2 decades. I mean, we lost touch after a year or two of email, and it's incredible how in sync you can be, if you think about it, just you and me, ourselves. After all this time, I know you've spoken to all these other people. I haven't seen all your shows, but I'm getting to it. And all of it, none of it floors. I don't think any of it's strange or weird. I just think you're on the same loop, the same pattern of awareness. And it's so wonderful to see it, but they don't want that. They don't want a lot of, more Marks and Allens getting together and understanding the bullshit game. And so let's keep the congregations apart, whether it's a church congregation or talking about, when a lot of guys talk about things is at a sporting event. You go take a piss. You're standing in line waiting for an ale and a pretzel at a hockey game or a soccer match. And people collect there and they gather and they talk. But you can't have these confluence of ideas with a lot of people.
Before
at
this
a pub, it's brutal.
Well, before this year happened, I for 20 years, I'd say to anybody that listened to me that the reason why the UK had never had a revolution like France had and other places had is because of what they did to the pub opening hours in the First World War. And what they did is they said, right, you can drink between midday and 2, and then you can drink between 6 and 9, right?
Right.
And what happened then is that every working man, and this was about the men working, because they were the threat to these guys. This is why they created World War I and II, to get rid of all the young men and all the strength. That's why they've introduced all this transgender bullshit that they've been doing over the last few years, because they've introduced in the vaccines hormone changing, sex changing, because they're trying to weaken the human race to the point where they can easily soften up the enemy, basically.
Yeah.
So I would say to anybody that because of those pub opening hours, the reason why there's such a drinking culture in Britain is a hangover from that hangover. I didn't mean to say that, but a hangover from this working man's drinking time, which basically meant that we've got an hour for lunch. And I experienced this when I worked as a journalist at the Daily Telegraph in Canary Wharf in 1990. People would come in, and they'd like have an hour for lunch, and they'd go onto this boat at the back of the building, and they would just go, just like, get him in, and they'd fucking drink 5 pints at lunch, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't drink 2 pints. These guys were drinking 5 pints at lunchtime, and they were hammered, right? Yeah. And then in the evening, they'd be like, let's get him in. And, have you ever tried organizing a revolution with 20 people that have all had 8 pints? It's quite difficult.
Yeah.
They start beating each other up.
Nectar of the proles. That's what it is.
So, why are there? So I was postulating this morning about maybe this pub culture thing isn't such a good thing here, where the pubs stay open all night, and they, you know, you can find people in pubs in Ireland at 8 o'clock in the morning drinking whiskey. I mean, it's
Wow.
that's part of the culture, right? So maybe that's something that has to stop, because alcohol, and I know this because I've abused alcohol a lot in my time. The word derives from the word ghoul, right?
Al Ghul, yeah,
It
exactly.
relates to the spiritual thing. And, you know, I've had so many messages and things about stopping drinking, and I've worked really hard on it, but it did nearly take me over at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And it is to do with entity possession, and it is to do with demonic energy. And this comes back to suicide as well, because the thing I was going to say earlier that I didn't say is that when I saw a medium about a year after I thought about suicide, she said, you know that that is the biggest prize for a demon, is if you take your own life, they get a big chunk of your soul.
Wow.
And it's like a multi-level marketing business, right? You've got this Abraxas, the main demon, then you've got Lucifer and Satan, and you've got all these other, Sophia, and all these demons. It's like a fucking pyramid scheme. So these low-level jinn demons, they'll fucking go at you, attach themselves to you, make you say stuff, make you drink, make you smoke, make you do bad things, whatever, and you don't even realize, you know, how many times you woke up saying, I don't remember saying that, I don't remember doing that. It's not the alcohol,
Yeah.
it's the demon that's possessing you. So when you get to the point where you think, maybe I've screwed my life up and I'm done and I'm worthless and everything, and all those thoughts, they're like this. They're like, come on, the big prize. And when you do take life, they're like, right. And they go back and it's like, well, I want my percentage. I want my percentage, and it is like that. I mean, as above, so below. Why do pyramid structures exist in terms of hierarchical societal structure? Why do they exist in terms of marketing schemes? Why do they? Because it's the same shit. And once we realize that we're multidimensional, and we're fighting and existing in many different planes all at the same time, this is just one of them. And that comes back to what I'm hoping is going to happen, is that if this solar flare is part of that awakening process, and the fact that we're in a different dimension anyway, then people are going to start remembering who they used to be, or their past lives, who they really are, what their purpose is. They're going to start seeing the energy around the plants and the trees and the animals, like, and you know, like I do. I was hugging a tree this morning, and it's a wonderful thing to do. And you know, grounding and just understanding all these really
very grounding
things about what it is to exist in harmony with Gaia and the earth. Then, you know, happy days.
You mentioned the alignment of the 21st of December. There, as I recall, there were, and I don't have any information about this right now, but in 1989, I think it was, there was a thing called the harmonic convergence, which to me, as I recall, very sketchy details, but it was something to do with a planetary alignment that had never been, but what came out of that? I don't know. This is back around the time Margaret Thatcher tried to institute a poll tax. Remember that? And everybody went nuts on that one.
Yeah,
but I don't know what benefits we got out of that, unless they're like incrementally leading towards a better place. And this one on the 21st is quite something, which is also a solstice date, right? I mean, it's the 21st. It always is every year, but this year it's a bigger deal, obviously.
Yeah, it's a winter solstice.
Yeah.
Well, there's a huge amount in all of this, and you know, they've trivialized things like astrology. And there's a great quote about millionaires ignore astrology, billionaires read astrology. You know, and so they put astrology in the newspapers and magazines to trivialize it, right? But actually, it's very, very powerful. Or all the most powerful people in the world are obsessed with it, and they're obsessed with numerology, and they're obsessed with all of the stuff that they've hidden from us because we've been brought up in our little boxes, right? Our little education boxes. And it's very, very hard to explain that to somebody who can't see beyond the box. David Icke calls it the postage stamp reality. You understand?
What? Sorry, you cut out there. What is
it? Postage stamp reality, I think he calls it. Perception deception. And I think it's a lot of really good stuff that Icke said. And that's you know, we have this extremely small and limited view of what is real.
Right.
Anything outside of that, like a nutter like me or you, they're just it does not compute, shuts it down, defriends you on Facebook. My own brother defriended me on Facebook 5 years ago because he didn't understand what I was talking about.
Wow.
When he sees the videos with my mum, he'll go nuts.
What are you telling her?
What are you saying? You're crazy, you're crazy. And
it's tough when it's family, huh? It is tough when it's family.
Look, there's not a single person watching this that hasn't lost friends and family through this year, if not before, right?
Yeah.
And it's just part of this process, right? We have to let go. It's the core tenet of Taoism. Let go, right? You have to let go of everything, including yourself. And until you can do that, which, you know, people do in different ways, ayahuasca, meditation, go and sit in the mountains and don't speak to anybody for a month. I mean, whatever the fuck it takes, just go and find your way of doing it and just let go of everything. And it just goes on. You let go, and then there's more to let go. Then there's more to let go. And it's like ideas about everything. It's actually a wonderful process. It's hard. And this is, you know, this spiritual development is not easy. Life isn't easy, but actually,
that's true.
But at the same time, it is. And if you come at it from the perspective that we are the core creators of all reality, and we're fractals of God, and we created this whole thing to experience it, then this is like a fucking theme park, right?
Yeah.
It's like happy days. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like Bill Hicks, this roller coaster. It's just a ride.
Yeah, it is. It is. Thanks, Bill Hicks, for that one. Yeah. I don't understand. I don't understand why we can't get more people on board, but it's not my job to figure that out, right? It just comes up as a thought once in a while. When something is so obvious to me, I don't know why other people can't see it, but you know, that's just, everybody's different. Get your own cup of tea.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, you know, I think you know, we spoke a few weeks ago, and I want to personally say thank you to everybody that helped Alan.
Oh my God, that was so wonderful. I'd name everyone, but it would take too long. I'm sending them all personal responses, but just to say, there were so many offers and awarenesses. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't, and I apply them all. What's that?
I got an email. I forwarded you an email yesterday. This is like,
yeah, exactly. I haven't had time to try that yet.
All those people I want to say thank you to, because I was gobsmacked myself, and I'm really glad you're getting something out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. It's really something. I want to know what your plans are for the Christmas time, or do you even celebrate that stuff, or what are you going to do?
I've got 5 kids, man. I can't avoid it, right? So one of them was here last night shopping for me. Like, you need to get this. We didn't like the wreath you had last year. We want a new one. We've got to get these lights. Got to get this. So, you know, and then what's my budget for Christmas present? And you know, I told my kids when they were little that Santa was made up and it was an anagram for Satan, and they should think about what that means.
Right.
But the pressure to have a good time at Christmas is ingrained in every single aspect of society in the West, and especially with the kids. And for them, it's like a beacon of light at the end of this dark time, because they go to school every day. Like, oh God, go to school again. I said, well, actually, you don't have to go, but you know, you're choosing to. But
sure.
So this Christmas Day thing for me, I don't give a fuck about Christmas.
I just hate to see what I saw yesterday, which was a set of you know, dingle balls to hang on the tree, decorations. And they were Santa, right? It was Santa, but he's wearing a mask.
No.
So, I mean, it's a double indoctrination. I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I did the same thing with my kids. We told them right from the get-go that there was they used to call him the man. Why do they put the man on their door? People would put a Santa Claus thing on the front door of the house. Why do they put the man? So they never, but now you're taking this fiction, which is this bullshit story about Santa Claus, which, you know, the origin story is horrible and everything. But even if you just leave it at that, it's fake. And then we're going to put a mask on him too. And don't worry about it. Now, listen to this. In my town, this is crazy what people are coming up with. So, you know, the Santa Claus parade, right?
No.
You're not familiar with the Santa Claus parade? No. Oh, well, we do it here. And what they do is in many of the cities, you know, all over the place, especially Toronto, where I'm from, they have Santa Claus is the last guy. He's on a giant float. It's a parade. He's up there waving to everybody. People are packed along the sidewalks. They have clowns. They have reindeer, all kinds of stuff. It takes about an hour to watch this parade. And it's something we've always done. To go and see the Santa Claus parade. They block off a street. It's huge. Now they're not doing that because of COVID. They don't want the crowds coming. So what they did in my town was they have now what they call a stationary parade. Social distancing, stationary parade. I mean, why don't you have a sitting, walking, whatever that means. So here's what it was.
Joe Biden rally.
They had Santa Claus and some other stuff, just like if you go to a shopping mall, you must have that where you got a Santa Claus at a shopping mall. And so he was down at one end of the town, and there were 1,000 cars lined up, sitting, idling, waiting to go and spend 5 minutes with Santa Claus, and they're not moving through. The people that are static, the people are basically static in the cars, and Santa Claus is static, and then they would drive through. This took hours. This took several hours. So allegedly, you're concerned about respiratory health. You're concerned about people breathing properly. And here's a fucking 1,000-car traffic jam with people barely moving at all. I talked to this one lady who I happen to know, and I said, what's going on with this? And she told me it was the Santa Claus stationary parade. And she told me it's taken me 90 minutes to get from that shopping center over there to here. And I mean, you can see it from out the window. It's right there. An hour and a half in the car with kids breathing. I mean, I don't know what that did to the town. And then you realize it's going on all over the place. And so this is to recapture Santa. I mean, the whole thing is a friggin' mess. Just stop lying to them in the first place. How about that?
Jesus Christ Almighty! Can you just stop?
But it's fun.
Stop using logic, Alan.
That's what gets me in trouble. I'll have to tell you the story. I'll have to tell, not now because we don't have time, but I'll have to tell you the story. Speaking of the other dimensions, etc. I'll just give you a teaser for this, okay? This cancer thing's been going in and out, and I've been finding that cannabis has been very effective at taking it out. So once again, it was kicking up its ugly head in 2018, and I was doing my show, Green Crush, and I decided that I was gonna go back to one of the South American countries that I'd already visited, of which there are 5 or 6 countries, to participate in a very intense cannabis ingestion period where I'm completely safe, no one's around, you don't have to do your daily routine. You're not in the 3D normal world. And to just really immerse myself heavily into this oil, which I did. And there's a great story about how I wound up going to Jamaica instead of South America, but it was fantastic. All right. This was an amazing time where I was so sick when I got there. I was on 2 canes. I could barely carry stuff. And within 3 days, I was walking around. Several days after that, they started calling me Dead Man because the locals saw how I was and knew who I was, how I was when I got there. And then the next thing you know, I'm doing push-ups, I'm doing pull-ups, I'm doing all kinds of physical crazy things. And I was just feeling it. It was so wonderful. I was designated to be there for 3 months, from January to the end of April. Everything's going great. I get contacted by someone in England, another Canadian comedian in England, who is a friend of mine also. And he, in 2018, had tried to get me to come over to England to do shows again. And through a series of circumstances, I wasn't able to do that. So here he is now. I'm down in Jamaica. He contacted me on Skype and said, come to England, do 4 shows with me. I'm going to open up the show. So it's his fan base. I'm going to open up the show and then I'll bring you on and do like 10 or 15 minutes or whatever it is. And this was so exhilarating to me to hear this. It was so kind. It was so wonderful. It's a boost. I felt like cancer had fucked me out of my stand-up. It literally did. And here was a chance. This guy was reaching across the Atlantic Ocean to get me to come back over there. I was so excited about it. His name is Tom Stade. So we were chatting about it. I was so excited. I had to change my plans of Jamaica. Instead of being there for 3 months, I was there for 10 weeks. And then my plan was to go to England, do the 4 shows with him, and then go back to Jamaica, finish up my 10 days there. Then I had gigs here in Canada, and I was speaking at a cannabis marijuana event called 420, which is something, was a big deal when cannabis was illegal, and I was headlining that. So anyway, this is where we'll stop because the story gets nuts at this point. I left Jamaica. The day before I left, a guy tried to kill me. Everything's going great up until then, pretty much. And a guy tries to kill me. And it was funny And he failed, obviously. And I remember how I defended myself, and there was something about that time slip stuff that I had mentioned earlier when I got my diagnosis, when everything shuts down. It's a fascinating story. I'll really have to tell you sometime, but let's just leave that. Then I flew from there to Toronto, where I had to wait 3 or 4 hours to then fly to London, somewhere Gatwick, I guess, and then meet Tom there, do the time, spend time with Craig, and then come back. It was all set up. It was going to be fantastic. Instead of that, though, when I got to the airport in Jamaica, was chatting with a friend in line, a man in line with his family, just chatting, waiting to get on the, getting our tickets. And a woman came by from the airline and asked me if I was in the correct line. Am I in the line where I've already checked in, or am I in the line where I need to check in? So I explained to her, I have already checked in at my hotel, but the Wi-Fi was dodgy, so I don't know if it's registered or not. I'm sorry. So she didn't answer me. She just stared at me like I said something really offensive. And I didn't understand that. And she walked away. The guy behind me says, what was that all about? I said, I don't know. Then I'm getting closer and closer to getting on the plane. She comes back. She says, I'm going to ask you again. Have you already checked in? Or are you in the right? And I said again, I don't know. And so then I get to the front of the line, and she started ushering in people in front of me. Eventually, I realized I'm not getting on this plane, and I didn't get on the plane. And I'm making a bit of a fuss in the Jamaican airport. I'm saying, what's going on? I don't understand this. I got my ticket and everything, and there was the next thing I know, here's this huge man. He must have been 6'5", 6'6", wearing a suit. He's got a tag on. He came up to me. He put his arm around me like I was his friend. He squeezed me tightly and pulled me in front of him, so he's standing behind me. This huge guy, and he's pressing into my backside. Okay, I could feel his pelvis grinding into my ass as he's holding me from behind. I'm in a crowded airport. I don't know what the hell's going on. He says, do you know who I am? I said, no, I don't. He says, I'm the Minister of Immigration for Jamaica. Now, I was in a time frame where I was completely fine to be there, so I wasn't breaking any kind of immigration rules. I had some information on Facebook about the fact that I was in Jamaica and that I was using cannabis in a voluminous amount to be able to blast, as I said, turbo blast this cancer out of my system. And he then made me sit down in a wheelchair and told me to stay in the wheelchair. And as he tried to pull me away in the wheelchair, my iPhone fell on the floor. And I said, that's my phone. And it didn't matter. They just wheeled me away. And he left me in the middle of the airport where people were walking by and said, you stay there. Now, I don't know what was going on. The whole thing was a mystery to me. And I was stuck in this wheelchair, and I wasn't allowed to get out of the wheelchair. I had to sit there and wait for this guy to come back. People are walking towards me. And I started to tell people, I'm being held against my will. I'm being held against my will. And they would just, of course, walk past me. So the next thing I know is big scuffle with him. My phone's missing. The airline says, you're not getting on the plane. You can try again tomorrow. That same woman, try again tomorrow. So I went back to the hotel that I was near. I said, can I have one more night? I don't have a phone now. And something was wrong with my computer. I couldn't get online. What? So I went back to the airport earlier the next day, got myself all booked in, and the same woman was there, and they're looking at me like things are weird. By the time I was through all of the hoops, going down the ramp to get on the plane, I was again taken out of the lineup and sat down while people were getting on the plane, and I had an interview with one of the crew people. I said, what am I doing? He says, well, we just want to make sure you're okay to fly. I've done everything else. I've been there. I've got my ticket, my boarding pass. And this guy has a 10-minute interview with me, at the end of which he says, yeah, you're okay to fly. I said, yeah, I know. Thanks a lot. So I get on the plane. I'm by myself. I don't have my phone. And I started to see quite strange things out of the window. And I'm talking about trails. Now, I would have taken pictures of this, but I don't have my phone. So I started sketching, drawing on a pad, these lines, these weird patterns that were going on without even looking at the pad. It was like automatic drawing. And then I would look out and I would look at it and go, okay, that's what I'm doing. I did that for a while. Then I went to sleep. I was talking to no one. I was in the back row, 2.5 hours of sleep. It's a 4-hour flight. I get to Toronto. All I said to the guy was, I just want 3 glasses of water. When we take off, sometime in the middle and at the end. I didn't have a credit card, even though I had money. So I couldn't buy anything on the plane for sustenance because you have to have a credit card. You can't have money. Yeah. And so by the time we landed, I get off the plane and I have to wait 2 or 3 hours to connect to go to England at Toronto. Well, the woman from the airline in Toronto says, the crew tells me that you're not able to fly on to England. I'm so sorry. Try again in the morning. And I'm like, what do you mean, the crew said? And she said, well, that's what they said, that you were acting up on the plane. Mark, I was asleep for half of the flight. I was silently drawing. I spoke to no one. I don't understand it. So now I'm trapped in this airport in Toronto. And she says, you can try again on the morning flight. You can't take this flight, but you can. So now I realize I have to sit here in the airport where there are cameras. And I know I'm going to be upset. I know I'm going to be pissed off and I'm going to say, fuck, once in a while. And they're going to see that. So I just bailed on the notion that I was even going to get there. All I had was British pounds. I had 600 British pounds. I was supposed to meet Tom in England. I was going to get with him and just travel around. There were like a caravan of comedians. That's it. Nothing to do. But now I don't have a credit card. I don't have a phone. I can't access Facebook, email, can't call anybody. I'm alone in Toronto. I don't live there anymore. I've been living elsewhere for a while. I can't contact anybody. I don't even have any payphone money, if you can find a payphone. And I'm stuck at the Toronto airport. As soon as the lady from the airline told me I wasn't going to fly on and that I was, and now I've realized I've missed 2 gigs out of the 4 by the time I actually get there. And I just didn't trust that I was going to get there. So I just thought, screw it. I'll just be in Toronto for a week until my ticket, and then I'll go back to Jamaica. And this is terrible because once again, I can't get to England for some strange reason. As soon as that woman walked away, there's a policeman standing there. And he says, you know, full dress uniform. And he says, so what are you going to do? And he'd been listening to this conversation with this woman. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you're not going anywhere. Where are you going to be tonight? Where are you going to spend the night? This is a cop at the airport. I said, and I mean, I'm reeling with the fact that I'm once again been hijacked out of this trip to England. I said to this cop, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. So, well, I need to know where you're going to stay. And I said, why do you need to? And now I'm getting pissed off. Like now I'm in my own country, and I'm just like, what the fuck do you need to know what I'm doing for? He says, well, I'd like to know where you're going to be if you can't go. I said, it's none of your business. A series of events took place from that point on that wound me up inside of a friend's house, where I was later arrested by the police and taken down and put into an ambulance.
What?
Yeah, well, it was pretty surprising to be arrested by 4 cops out of a friend's house, be taken downstairs, thinking you're going to get into a police car. You know, some logic is still at play. And there's a fucking ambulance there. And they put me onto a gurney. And I'm strapped down onto a gurney, and out comes a needle, and it gets planted into my leg, through the jeans, through the underwear, through the whole thing, stuff I'd been wearing in Jamaica, and we are going to a hospital. As soon as I got to the hospital, I'm still on the gurney. The cops wheel me in. The intake nurse there is just furious and screaming at me. I don't even know who she is. Is this the first time you've tried to kill yourself, Mr. Park? That's what she said. I said, what? I'm not trying to kill myself. What are you talking about? And then the cops started asking me questions. And Mark, there was a level of cannabis in me that was quite high. I was on a lot of cannabis oil, but you see a lot of things clearly. I was answering every single question from a circle of people, firing them at me. Like a cop would say, well, what are you doing here? Well, how long have you been here? What's your name? Where do you live? And I would answer every single question. And guys, I was hearing a policeman say something over here about me and my arrest while I was talking to a nurse. And I heard this cop say, yeah, when we got there, he was throwing shit around and we had to restrain him, which was completely untrue. And I said, excuse me for a second. That's fucking bullshit, Officer Cooper, DB 343X, or whatever it says on his tag. And I'll take you to task for that. Dude, I was strapped to a gurney for hours until they whistled me into a hospital where I had an interview with a doctor, quite upset about all this. And he branded me a psychotic depressive who had tried to kill himself. And their whole reasoning for this was that I had cannabis oil in me to a level that was this high. Ergo, I'm suicidal and therefore a danger to everyone around me.
How did they know?
I said, the fucking fact that I'm taking so much cannabis oil is a testament to how I'm trying to save my life. You fucking idiot. And this is where I came up with the whole concave convex thing.
Yeah.
You see it one way, you see it the other way.
Yeah.
I was locked up in an ICU for 3 weeks.
What?
I got out for 5 days, another bizarre series of events, and I had to go back in because they said I left stuff behind, and they called and said I had left stuff in there, and please come and get your belongings. And I had nowhere else to go. I had someone else calling the police on me, saying that I was throwing up blood and all of this kind of thing. This is a former person, This is a person who was allegedly trying to help me by putting up a cancer fund for Alan on Facebook, which I thrice said, no, don't do that. Did it anyway, took all the money from it with my name on it. So like, it was like you were giving me money, but you weren't. You were giving this money to someone else. There's a whole crazy series of events. I haven't even been able to capture it all and put it in a book, but it needs to be in a comic book more than anything else. But the second time I went back in to get my stuff, I said, I was here for a few days and I can't seem to go anywhere without an ambulance or a police car slowing down and coming up to me and asking me, what's going on? And so I want to know if you've said that I was, psychotic cannabis person, and then you release me, why am I having this trouble? And they put me right back in there. 3 weeks again. So I had to plan to get out. They kept saying, well, here's a 1-day form. That means you're stuck for 1 day. Here's a 3-day form. Now it's another 3 days. Here's a 5-day form. Now it's another 5 days. I'm going, what is going on? Why am I trapped in this place? You're going to love how I got out of there.
How?
You're going to love how I got out of there. We can't talk about it now. Honestly, the story of how I got out of there is crazy, but it all came down on a certain day, and I love it. I love the story of how I got out, but I still don't understand all of these events. I don't know why the Minister of Immigration, who had a tag on, he was definitely this big, huge black man from Jamaica. The airline people were fine with it. There's a whole series of events there that are so strange. I don't even have all the answers for it, but it led me to the place where I was eventually arrested. The day that I got out after being in ICU for 6 weeks with a 5-day interruption, the day that I got out, I was again arrested for uttering a death threat to the person who I was telling them, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you at all. I want to go to England. I want to go and do my comedy. I want to kill in England. I don't want to be stuck in Canada. And a whole series of events takes place where then I was arrested on Yonge Street, the major street of Toronto. And this is the day after I got out. So now I'm in jail for 24 hours. What the fuck is going on? The best part about it for me was while I was in the prison cell, the floor was wet with what, urine or something from the previous, just like you see, a little bunk, a little toilet, a little sink. And I just committed to the premise. Okay, I'm in jail. So I had to figure out a way to dry the floor, which irritated the guard once I told him I'd done this. Figured out how to do it. Eventually I went to court, had to do my own show cause trial to get released, which I was. And then I began several months of a journey of needing to defend myself in court as my own lawyer because I couldn't find a lawyer. A lawyer had previously involved myself with, told me that I wasn't going to get his help. I didn't want his help. I wanted a friend of his help, a different lawyer. And I literally was forced to have to defend myself, which I did do. and it was fun. Like the judge kept saying, Mr. Parker, you're going to need a lawyer for this. I said, are you telling me I have to have a lawyer for this trial? So they kept kicking it down the road, pre-trial. Eventually I got out, but that wasn't until I wasn't free and clear until November 21st of last year.
Wow.
And finally able to just sort of begin to resume my life after a very strange series of events. I blame cannabis. I blame the fact that I was using it and proclaiming it to be as effective as it is. I blame the fact that I had a show that actually documented this. I'd like to take snippets from that show from 2-3 years ago where I predicted things, all of which have come true, and repackage it. But I feel like I've been silenced and muted by a lot of different mainstream energies. I had interviews with the CBC, much like the BBC, with an interview with a reporter, 3 different interviews. He promised me it would be on the news. I told him it would never be on the news. It's never been on the news. So I've got a crazy series of stories that I'd like to be able to connect together that I can't really get it all done at one time. I think it needs to be serialized or something.
Sounds like it.
And when you get to the point of certain, like, who was it really the Minister of Immigration? Why would he do that? I don't have all those. I don't have the answers to that. It's very strange.
Have you written all this down?
I've written a lot of it down. I've recorded a lot of it. I've audio taped a lot of it. I've drawn some of it. It really needs to be a graphic novel. I can't see any other way of telling, but I don't really have the moral or the lesson out of it yet. That's the problem.
That's coming. So just start doing it, and then that will. Because that's the way this is why I think you just throw yourself into it, and then it all starts. That's when the shit happens. But that is mental.
It is mental. It is absolutely mental. And being in the ICU was quite something, because the psychiatric doctor would come in and say, we feel that you're still in a psychotic state, and that we can't possibly let you go. And I said, see, that's the difference between you and me. You feel, and I know. And then they asked me, why won't you take our drugs? Why won't you experiment with our drugs? I said, because I've already been shot up with them involuntarily where I threw up, and I already know what they do. If you give an antipsychotic med to someone who's not psychotic, it's a problem. And so they kept pushing these meds on me every day. And I'm telling you, I was like Jack Nicholson in Cuckoo's Nest. I said, take your fucking medicine and get out of my room.
Guys just want to watch the game, Nurse Ratched.
That's all it is. That's just a horrifying experience. But I think it has to do so much with stepping out of the mainstream of how I even bothered to deal with the cancer, what I was even saying about it. You're not allowed to cure it. I never said I did, but I was treating it in such a way where it was so sublimated, it wasn't affecting me in a negative way.
No, so, I've got a friend, Dale, who's an artist. He got sectioned 20 years ago, and he's a very, very similar kind of story. But while you're telling that, I'm thinking of Patrick McGowan in The Prisoner when he's out in the, and these big white balls come and get him. And it's kind of like, and it's the Matrix as well with the agents, you know?
Yeah.
They come and get Neo out of his, he's like, what do they do? Why are they chasing me? You know, just because they know who he is. And this is all back to consciousness for me, because when you are vibrating at a different frequency to the Matrix tries to shut you down.
Well, that was confirmed to me by the cleaner, this lovely Polish woman who would come around and clean the rooms. You know, when I was in the hospital floor in the ICU, I was in a hallway with 5 other cellmates or prisoners, and she would come. We had wonderful conversations, and it turns out she was a doctor in Poland. But when she had come to Canada, she was only fit to clean the floors. Yeah. But I explained to her, something's going on with my computer here. It's very strange. I was explaining to her about my situation, and she was completely understood. We were having great conversations with her. She completely understood what was going on. And on the last day, what I had done was, let's go back to the triangle. Let's go back to, I'm gonna, if this twigs with you at all. So I had decided that there was going to be a particular day that was going to be my release day. And I had that in my mind, you know, a couple of weeks ahead of time, a few weeks ahead of time. I picked a particular day, a certain ways and means, and 3 days before that day happened, I don't know where this came from, and I understand it's going to sound completely insane, but I created basically a transporter on the floor. If you watch Star Trek at all, you know, the beaming in, beaming out.
Yeah.
So I had accidentally discovered in my hospital room that, and I had a radiator in there for heat as well. And I had accidentally discovered that the little juices that they bring you with the tinfoil covering, that the grape juice, I left it on there and it was warm, and well, the bloody stuff turned into booze, didn't it? And so I took it had fermented, and I realized it. And then I had this vision of how to get out of there with this booze, spirits. Check this out. I opened up this grape juice, and on the floor of my bedroom, my cell room, which you could push the bed over, I put 3 dots on the floor, just like the triangle, about that big. Poured that booze, which was grape juice, which was what they gave me, on the floor, a triangle. Then I shook pepper onto it. Pepper that I had in little pouches to put in my food. Shook pepper onto those 3 blots on the floor, circular blots of pepper, because pepper counters any kind of uncomfortable high you might get from cannabis. If anybody gets freaked out, you know, like high school kind of people, if you just snort some freshly cracked pepper, that'll sort of level you down. Yeah. So I don't know where all this came from, by the way, but I put those 3 things down on the floor. I shook the pepper into it, and then it dried. Yeah, so you have these 3 dots on the floor. Well, the nurses came in, they did not like that. The doctors came in, they did not like that. What's this doing on the floor? I said, it's art, leave it. When the cleaner came, I said, please don't clean the floor. Here's what I'm doing. She says, oh, okay, no problem. And she didn't clean the floor. And each night, I would stand inside that triangle before I was to go to sleep. And meanwhile, there's cameras everywhere, right? Like you've got cameras, you're in a panopticon. Didn't give a shit. And I stood inside of that thing, and I went somewhere. I don't know where it was, but every time I would come to again, I was in my bed. The 3rd night that happened, I woke up in the morning and I said, this is the day I'm getting out. And sure enough, a series of machinations took place, and I got out of there. And it was incredible. I can't even begin to tell you that this stuff came to me from somewhere else, because the grape juice, you know, like the way the Christians drink that, it was supposed to be the wine, it's supposed to be the blood, and these analogs of representation. I've been gifted with some of this stuff. If you question it, you're obviously not going to get anything out of it. Yeah. To be in a place where, you know, fuck it, I'm in a mental institution on the 7th floor, fighting it at every single turn, having arguments with the psychiatrist at every single turn. And I told this other guy, and it came in like a vision, like I told you when I was sick before. If you haven't seen the previous episode, when I got the voice telling me, get involved with medical care. Same kind of thing happened when I was in there. Yeah. And I explained these kinds of voices. Yeah, you can't talk about it with people because they go, "Oh, you're hearing voices. You must be nuts." I can't understand why anybody would believe it. So I don't try to push it. You know what I mean? I just know where I was with it. But this doctor was basically yelling at me and saying, "You have to do this. Your problem is you're taking this." And I said to the guy, "Look, if you're correct, and this is a problem that I have, this cannabis psychosis, I don't need your antipsychotic medicines. That's bullshit. What I need is CBDs, which is everything that's in THC except for the THC, everything that's in cannabis except for the THC. That's what I need to take." And at this point, this doctor, psychiatrist says, "See, that's the kind of thinking that shows me that you're still dependent on the narcotic, and that you're still psycho." You know what I mean? And so what happens 4 or 5 months later, September 2019, after I'm out, you know, an article comes out from Western University in Canada, London, Ontario, explaining that the best thing to do if you're having a cannabis psychosis, if you've had too much cannabis or whatever it is to take CBDs exactly the way it's like I was intuiting the knowledge that they were coming to in this study. This is in April. And the study wasn't released until September. But the voice came in and said, just tell him this. And so I told him, I said, this is what I need. I need CBDs, not this. And so even at that point, the etheric, the spiritual world was giving me information that was clashing with the medical diktats of the psychiatrist. And between that and all of the medical problems I've had in my life, my mother's disbelief, the pushing of the thalidomide drug on my mother, who constantly refused it, her almost lapsing into diabetes in the 60s. They said, come back next year, we'll give you insulin. She managed to prevent it from happening. I've just always had an inherent distrust of the medical technocracy or whatever, well before COVID. And so when this COVID thing happened and these guys are running around, I'm so not on that team. I can't even believe it. Like from day one.
We're both not on that team. And that is an amazing story to end on, because I've got to go and pick up my daughter.
Ah, yes. Well, yeah, there's more. I'll see if I can get it done. I want to get a comic book artist to help me with it, because I can't draw that kind of thing. But
well, there are definitely comic book artists watching this video. So if anybody who's a comic book artist and wants to have a chat with Alan, then it's amazing what happens on his YouTube channel.
It is amazing, and I'll say this: that my heart sinks a little bit. I'm not gonna come out and label everything fully here, but if anybody does the research, they'll be able to figure it out. I'm not going to broadcast this because it's quite upsetting, but I'll say this much because I feel like I'm okay to say it.
You are.
I had wanted to tell so much of this story in a graphic novel format in the first place. I merged this story with another fellow who had written a similar story, and I wanted to help heal my family by having a particular family member do the drawings for it. He's excellent. He's one of the best in the world, and he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to help me with it at all, and was completely and is completely convinced that I'm a garbage person with nothing to offer. And isn't it strange now that this particular fellow who says all of this of me has to leave my country to live somewhere else because he's fleeing the oppression of, let's just call it something to do with the Me Too movement. Apparently he's been in a bit of a situation for many, many years, and he's well known to be somewhat of a serial predator in a certain way, to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And it's weird to be judged by someone who has to flee a country for, anyway, I don't see him getting a lot of work anymore. He's been released from some work that he's had professionally, and it's unfortunate, but all of this is truth. And anybody doing the research will be able to, with my name and who I'm talking about in my family, you'll be able to figure it out, but I'm just not going to put his name on it right now. Yeah. And it saddens me because I thought the best thing that would happen is to sit down with this family person and together create this wonderful story, and that's not going to happen. So I guess I'm looking for a different comic book artist.
We're family, not necessarily blood. So
yeah, no. So it is a good format for that, and I hope it spins out into something else. But I understand this brings to a close another one of our chats, and
yeah, it's been amazing.
Listen, man, it's a bromance. I love you. This is so great. I can't believe how strongly a seed can grow from just planting it 21 years. I didn't even know we were planting. We were just a couple of chums getting along really well, and this is great. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, man. And you keep doing what you're doing, and let's do another one.
Okay, let's do it. Maybe just before or just after the 21st, maybe we can talk about some of that stuff.
Maybe just after.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. And,
all right, Mark.
Take care of yourself.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
See you later.
Bye.